Hello and welcome. You're listening to Health Professional Radio. Thank you for joining us again. I'm your host, Neil Howard, and we're going to have a conversation with Dr. Cindy Jacobs. She's joining us here to talk about the use of cytisinicline as a treatment for the cessation of nicotine e-cigarette use. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Dr. Jacobs. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're joining us here from Achieve Life Sciences. Give us a little bit of your professional background and talk about your role there at Achieve.
So at Achieve, I am President and Chief Medical Officer, and my background is I have a Ph.D. in research and an MD degree, and I've been in the biotech world for about 30 years in clinical research and running clinical trials.
And what is Achieve Life Sciences' mission?
Well, nicotine addiction, whether by use of combustible or electronic cigarettes, remains a major public health concern in the U.S. In fact, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, or NIDA, as they are called, includes tobacco and nicotine vaping as drugs of abuse. And according to the CDC, more than 50 million Americans are addicted to some form of nicotine, including roughly about 11 million users of nicotine e-cigarettes or nicotine vapes. Achieve's focus and commitment is to address this global nicotine addiction by making cytisinicline a widely available nicotine cessation therapy for those who want to kick the habit, basically kick the nicotine habit for good. I mean, right now, although there are approved medications to help smokers quit combustible cigarettes, there are no currently approved medications that specifically help nicotine vapors to quit. So if successful, cytisinicline could be the first.
What is the difference between the nicotine that's in vaping products and the nicotine that's in combustible cigarettes?
Well, nicotine is nicotine. There is no difference. Mm-hmm. But what is different is all that goes with it. So e-cigarettes may not contain all the toxins that combustible cigarettes have, but they do have other components in them that are the short and long-term safety of them of e-cigarettes remains unclear.
When it comes to addiction, is nicotine the only ingredient in cigarettes, whether combustible or e-cigarettes, that is actually addictive in nature, not just harmful?
It is the addictive component of combustible cigarettes and nicotine e-cigarettes, yes. So
basically, just because it's in a vape form, as long as there's nicotine in it, there is the high risk of addiction.
Correct. For example, in individuals who have quit combustible cigarettes by using nicotine e-cigarettes, it actually has been shown that continued e-cigarette use or nicotine vaping can cause further or sustained nicotine addiction. In fact, a multivariate analysis about a year or two ago showed that individuals who had higher nicotine dependence scores were associated with longer e-cigarette use. So basically the safest option is to quit nicotine use altogether, whether it's combustible cigarettes or vaping.
Is it just the manufacturers of e-cigarettes that are touting that it's safer than combustible cigarettes, or is there science to back that claim up?
Well, e-cigarettes do contain fewer toxins than combustible cigarettes. So they do have the potential to help individuals stop smoking cigarettes. The problem is that ongoing studies on the health effects of nicotine, regardless of whether you're getting it through e-cigarettes or combustible cigarettes, but if you're getting it in e-cigarettes, it's still been shown to have correlations with cardiovascular disease, irreversible lung damage, respiratory disease, including emphysema, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, chronic bronchitis, and asthma. Mm-hmm. So e-cigarettes pose their own kind of unique health risks. The Truth Initiative that was just published recently reported that heavy metals such as cadmium, lead, nickel, tin, and copper have been detected in some aerosols produced by e-cigarettes, and at least 60 other chemical compounds have been found in e-liquids, all with unknown potential harm over long-term use.
Now, we've all been acquainted with the public service announcements about stopping smoking, cessation programs all over the place, and we've all heard about the guy or the woman that has really wanted to quit for years but just couldn't seem to, and they tell everyone, hey, I really want to quit. Are you hearing the same thing from people that are vaping?
Yes. In fact, as more data is released and the potential risks and harm of these various vape and e-cigarette products are understood, more users are seeking options for quitting. In fact, we conducted a survey of approximately 500 users of nicotine vaping devices or e-cigarettes, and 73% of them responded that they wanted or intended to quit vaping within the next 3 to 12 months. And of those who intended to quit even sooner, within the next 3 months, more than half stated that they would really like or extremely like to try a prescription product to help them do so. And frankly, we'll soon be finding out as we will be initiating our trial in 2022 that will enroll participants who vape or use nicotine e-cigarettes and want to quit, to evaluate cytisinicline's benefit in helping them to quit their nicotine dependence.
In your opinion, is the psychological dependence on combustible cigarettes and other combustible products equal to or greater than the psychological dependence with e-cigarettes?
Well, the dependence is still a chemical dependence with nicotine, so it's definitely similar. It's really your dependence on nicotine that you're fighting.
Now, a little bit about your partnership with the NIH. You mentioned that these plans are going to roll out for this study in next year, right?
Correct.
Now, is this an ongoing partnership? Is this a new development with the NIH?
Well, yes and no. Our initial partnership with NIH actually goes back to 2016, 2017, when the NIH deemed cytisinicline as a drug of national public health importance. And the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, a division of NIH, funded and conducted all of our non-clinical pharmacokinetic and toxicology studies that were required for submitting an investigational new drug application for cytisinicline with the FDA. And then later in 2019, the NCI, another division of NIH, also helped fund all of our non-clinical fertility and reproductive toxicology studies required to start a phase 3 program for evaluating cytisinicline as a smoking cessation medication. And now, in 2021, the recent grant is the National Institute on Drug Abuse, or NIDA, again, of the NIH, has just awarded us a grant to help fund a phase 2 clinical trial evaluating cytisinicline as a nicotine vaping cessation medication.
Where can we learn more online about cytisinicline and about Achieve Life Sciences as well and follow these studies?
You can actually go on to our website, and there is a link to these studies. And also, once the grant gets published as far as the on the government side, we'll have a link to that as well.
I really appreciate you sharing your time with us this evening. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to another conversation with you, hopefully in the not-too-distant future.
Thank you, and thank you again for calling.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Dr. Cindy Jacobs, President and Chief Medical Officer at Achieve Life Sciences. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, listen in, download it, SoundCloud, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Health Professional Radio.